Why won't Rudy Giuliani go away? Please go away. Just have a seat, rent a seat if you're all out. A lot of judgments against you. Rudy Giuliani calls Fani Willis, Fulton DA, a hoe at a Christian rally, because that's what we're doing, apparently.
With millions watching and many people benefiting from this program called Indisputable, we just need 1% of the viewers to become a paid member so we can continue to bring this content to you. Now back to the show.
Let's give you the details on this one. But first, watch, listen for yourself.
Then I've got two prosecutors, Fani the hoe. I'm sorry. Fani? What is Fani? Now, F-A-N-I is not Fani, and I'm not calling her Fani. I could drop the whole part if she just quit and go away. But to me, you spell your name F-A-N-I. You're Fani. You're not Fani.
So now he's apparently doing stand-up. Okay, takes one to know one. I've heard people say that, but of course, this prosecutor should not be referred to in these terms. Per the Daily Beast, where we got this information, the clip there, Rudy Giuliani stooped to a new low over the weekend, deploying the derogatory epithet of hoe to refer to Fulton County District Attorney Fani Willis during an address at that Christian Nationalist Conference. Where are the Christians, you might be asking? Playing to the cheap seats, rather. Former New York mayor called out Willis, who indicted him in Georgia last year in connection with his efforts to overturn the 2020 election while speaking on stage at the ReAwaken America Tour, far-right movement launched in part by Donald Trump's former national security advisor, Michael Flynn. Oh, he had his own troubles. Giuliani has pleaded not guilty in Georgia. He has also pleaded not guilty in Arizona, where he was indicted earlier this year on 9 felony election interference charges. And we credit the Daily Beast. The ReAwaken America Tour, the brainchild of MAGA fanatic Clay Clark, is a culture war roadshow that is part conservative Christian revival, part QAnon expo, and part political rally, according to NPR. What about the Bible? What about sharing the word? Maybe they'll get to that. I don't know. As Talking Points memo points out, it was Giuliani who famously smeared Georgia election workers Ruby Freeman and Shay Moss, both Black women. That seems to have been a catalyzing reason that Willis undertook to bring the sprawling RICO case against Giuliani, Trump, and more than a dozen other co-defendants. Talking Points memo. Freeman and Moss subsequently won a nearly $150 million defamation judgment, forcing Giuliani into bankruptcy. Despite this, he continued defaming them until recently agreeing to cease and desist as part of the bankruptcy settlement. Now Giuliani has shifted his attacks to another Black woman. TPM writer David Kurtz contrasts this with Arizona, where Giuliani faces criminal charges by Attorney General Chris Mays for his efforts to subvert the 2020 election. Giuliani made no hoe comments about Mays, a white woman. It remains to be seen if the justice system will treat a white man calling his Black prosecutor a hoe as severely as it would a Black man in the same situation. I wonder what will happen. You see the picture there of the Arizona Attorney General Wosny. I can't say I was surprised when I heard this. It was further evidence, though, of Rudy Giuliani being an unhinged individual. Mm-hmm. I know he's cruel. I know he's a sneak and a snake, a liar. But this was interesting to me for another reason. As he said it, those in attendance just lapped it up. I mean, it was just more than a courtesy laugh. They thought this was, you would have thought that he was Kevin Hart, Dave Chappelle. Was this Chappelle show? That's how loudly and forcefully they laughed. What did you note when you first saw the clip?
I think, Sharon, it's obvious that him using the term hoe specifically is a racialized way
Thank
of
you.
disparaging prosecutor Willis. That's just obvious that he chose that word deliberately because it's a Black woman that he's talking about. And, let's face it, her private sexual life has been made public by the whole debacle with who she appointed to adjudicate the case against Trump and his cronies and all of that. Like, we all know what's going on there. The other thing that I noted is that this is at some so-called Christian conference. And again, these are the people who pretend to be the most holier than thou, the most pious. Basically, they claim to be the best people ever. And as you said, they're whooping it up as this guy so callously just takes personal shots at a public servant, which, and again, like, people need to understand this. And I said this yesterday on the main show with Anna, and I'm gonna say it again. Rudy Giuliani's credibility and reputation has taken such a precipitous fall. He himself was a district attorney. His reputation before he became mayor of New York, I might add, was for being the DA that took down the American mafia in New York City. We're talking about the damn near the heyday of the mob in the 80s. He brought a legendary RICO case against the 5 families and severely damaged those criminal organizations. So, which is just crazy. Now he's a crook himself. And then 2, he becomes the mayor of New York City, and rightly or wrongly, some people like me would say wrongly, whatever, others would say rightly, that he gained the reputation, for quote unquote cleaning up New York City from the crazy crime-ridden New York that was the 80s and the early 90s. By the time he left office in 2002, like I said, this guy was seen as a New York and Republican political legend, so much so that this man was able to run for president quite credibly. After 9/11, people were calling this guy America's mayor. And to see him bring himself this low, where he's a carnival barker and a petty criminal now, it's one of the great falls in American life that we've ever seen. And we just feel sad for this guy, because quite frankly, he's pretty freaking pathetic.
I agree with you. And I'll take it point by point. Here's what. I don't know that, this is the one point I disagree with, that he fell from grace. I think he always lacked integrity. I was just having this conversation with a friend of mine in the religious community yesterday. Remember when he got credit for being America's mayor? He did it right, but wasn't the blueprint already there? What are you gonna do? Was the most horrific terrorist act on American soil in our #1 city. I mean, I think, and my friend agreed, he was given too much credit for just
Absolutely
being and doing the right thing. RICO, since you're right, he crippled the American mafia. He sure did. He apparently learned a lot. RICO was his favorite tool, and he picked up all of the tricks of the trade, apparently, because that's what he's clearly engaged in. The statute that he popularized and fine-tuned is perfect to prosecute him. So there's, that. And as far as cleaning up New York City, how? Stop and frisk the backs of many Black people, Black men in particular, homeless people, the unhoused. He did it the easy way and the callous way. And we'll never really know what the stats were in that time. And I'm not saying that New York was the most safe city in the world. It had challenges, but this guy has been a menace for a long time. And this guy, people who were there will tell you, Al Sharpton and others, he did some really despicable things to some crime victims of the police who were Black. So I could go on, but to hear him use this derogatory term about a woman who has done a lot on the right side of the law is sick. It's disgusting. And I look for people to come out and defend her against this. Not that, as you said, this is a buffoon. Do you really clap back at a buffoon? I think sometimes you have to. I do. I think sometimes you have to clap back at this kind of ignorance. And much has been made about her dating life. The only people who brought it forth, it had nothing to do with this case, not a thing to do with this case. But the people who wanted to exploit it and talk about it as if she was this promiscuous, because that's how Black women are. They're loud, they're aggressive, they're angry, and oh yeah, they're very promiscuous, okay? I got a daughter who says, will you please get a man? Never seen one around here, okay? So, but that's what we're doing in America. And I don't think that we should stand for it for another moment. I'll give you the last word.
Yeah, just to get back to the New York City point, because I think you make an important one when Giuliani gets all this credit. To be clear, there was about 2,000 homicides in New York City at one point. I believe the number is 2,000 one year in the 80s, which is just an insane number. However, there was crime everywhere in America. And guess what? In the 90s, mid 90s to the mid 2000s, crime decreased everywhere in America. It wasn't just New York where this happened. So it's not like Giuliani waved some magic wand and he had some answers and his nonsense broken windows policies was the magic trick that did it. So yes, he does get a lot of credit for it, but like Sharon, I'm not sure that he deserves even an ounce of it.
Yeah, and let's remember why before we move on. You're right. A lot of murders in New York and elsewhere in these big cities. And it just so happened to coincide with the crack epidemic and all the fallout and the violence from that. And as that was brought to bear and the criminalization, people were locked up at incredible rates, crime decreased. Imagine that. So you're not a guru. And who you calling a hoe, brother? Okay. Was it, who was the funny guy in the movie Wosny who spoofed and tricks people? Whatever he does, he goes all around, and he had Rudy in that hotel room making advances.
Probably was Borat. Was that Borat? Yeah.
Yes. So who you calling a hoe, Rudy? Again, okay. And now he might be an expert in the subject, but we'll keep following the story. I don't like it. And I happen to know that people will come out and they're going to have some things to say about it.